There you go. Perfect.
Yeah, I believe I have the ability to share my screen, so if you bear with me. So this is my very first geomob. So Claire, you're one ahead of me. This is my first, but I'm aiming for that sixth record or the seventh record of talks. So we've got some way to go, but I'll explain a bit more about my background and why this is my first geomob. So nice to meet you all, and good evening or good morning, depending on where you are. So my name's David Greenwood. I'm the founder of what I would call a side project called TrekView. What I'm going to talk about this evening is a project under that umbrella that is around using street level photographs to improve cycling infrastructure. So my background, actually, before I get into that, so what we do as an organization and what TrekView essentially is the aim behind the whole project is to take street level imagery and use it to try and better understand the environment from things like coastal erosion through to potential disaster related events. Forgive me, my geospatial background is limited. So my career has been in cybersecurity, most recently founding my own cybersecurity company. So that's what takes up most of my time. And as I say, TrekView right now is a side project for me. But on the occasional weekends, I like to go out on hikes and look silly, as I do in this photo, with a camera either mounted on a cycling helmet or sticking out of a backpack. The camera you see here is a GoPro Fusion. So it's a 360 camera that catches a 360-degree view of the world. If any of you, and I'm sure almost everyone on this call would have seen services like Mapillary or Google Street View, these cameras take those type of images. Not quite the same resolution as Google do, but they still look pretty good. And I started out about a year and a half ago, just doing this as I say, a side project. I thought it would be cool to start uploading this imagery to Google. I then discovered a whole host of other services that do this type of stuff. And I built camera mounts for my helmet. I bought some to go scuba diving with, as well as the first one I ever built, which is sticking out of a backpack. The project actually started taking off quite quickly, and that a lot of other people were, I don't want to use the word geeky, but I will, as geeky as me, in wanting to go out and take these images of their local footpaths, local towns, hiking trails, areas that are of interest to them that they want to capture very recent imagery of, that they can use for a whole variety of purposes, both professional, but also just to share with family and friends. And in getting into this project, I discovered a service called Mapillary. For those of you on the call that are unfamiliar with Mapillary, essentially this is Google Street View, but completely user-contributed images. So anyone can take a smartphone or an action camera or a 360 camera and publish geotagged photos to the Mapillary platform. Under the hood, they also do a lot of other cool stuff around just the photo itself and allowing people to be able to jump down and get that street level view. One of the things that became really intriguing for me in getting familiar with Mapillary and their platform was the ability to not only upload images, but also something they call semantic segmentation. So every image uploaded to Mapillary is essentially read by a computer. There's a bit of software that looks at every pixel in the image, and it tries to assign an object value to it. So in this photo, for example, it will be looking at the pixels in this area here, and the idea being it will pull out a car. So you can see here in the image that's been detected here, we have cars, and if we wanted to, we could count the individual cars that were counted in the photo. You can go a step further and based on more than one photo, place that car in a physical position in the world. So you can say, based on the time of this photo and based on the 5 photos that were taken along this particular cycling path, there was a car in this location at the time. And that became really interesting. And I kind of thought, hey, this, if I could learn first how to do it, but then also learn how to use the data, so the models that are identifying these objects inside the images, there seemed to be a lot of potential there. I wasn't quite sure what it was, but being able to pick out a tree is quite useful. Being able to pick out the species of a tree is even more useful. Being able to pick out the change in size of a tree over time based on its species, again, is quite useful. But one of the biggest issues in this type of imagery is it takes a lot of effort to capture, and it's not always of a particular single standard. If everyone's using different cameras in a different way, the images that come out are slightly different. So we know Mapillary were already doing community-based stuff. There's a huge community around Mapillary. But there's also limitations. A lot of people are using Mapillary to just capture, as I say, hiking trails or bike paths. And they want to create some sort of experience around these images. So we have been getting involved in that community, and we built a product called Map the Paths. I won't go too much into what it does from a user point of view. But at a very high level, it allows people to create experiences around their hikes or their bike rides, whereby they can point out interesting things they've seen along the way and then share that with family and friends. But in capturing those images and getting lots and lots of data, we can improve the models that we're building to detect object or detect signs or detect something that's inside a photo. And as a passionate cyclist, one of the things that most interested me, especially over the summer of this year when I've had more time to get out on the bike, is cycling infrastructure. So this is a photo I took a few weeks ago in Amsterdam of cycling lanes. And you can see in this photo, what we've identified is a bicycle marking on the road. And if we think about this from a top-down level, what we can do by positioning all these markings in a physical space in the world, we can start to look for gaps where there is perhaps confusing signage, perhaps there's not enough road markings, perhaps there's particularly complex cycling lanes whereby the colors change, or especially in London, you notice where cycling lanes suddenly jump from being on the road to on the pavement to segregated from the road itself. So what I wanted to do in extracting all this information from these series of images was try to identify the hotspots and the dangerous areas that could potentially be candidates for improvement from an infrastructure perspective. And one of the projects we launched on Map the Paths was, hey, let's get people out, let's try and create a challenge and get them capturing imagery. So what we have here is one of the projects we ran where we got users to try and contribute 10,000 kilometers of bike lanes in Amsterdam. So we had that training data set that we could use. And we gamify it, so we have a leaderboard and everyone can contribute based on the distance they've mapped. And we also go into labeling challenges. So one of the ways in which we can help train the data sets or train the models that identify what's inside an image is through labels. So there's off-the-shelf models you can use that can identify things like cars, which are very, very good at what they do. But there's also more nuanced hazards, especially when you talk about cycling. So we also have challenges that get people to label objects in a physical space on the map that are potential hazards. So as you see here, we know it's a vehicle, but in this case, we know it's actually a hazardous vehicle based on the location in space, in this case being inside of a bike lane. And we've got lots of people getting actually behind this project. So there's a team out in the States. They've built a whole data bike around this project to start capturing images and start trying to use those images and the abstracted information to plan safer cycling infrastructure. The hope being, if we collect enough images, we can build a model of a perfect bike lane. So what is the safest type of bike lane you can design? And all of this is open source. So we have this platform called Map the Paths. The link is here. And all of the software and the models we're building are open source on GitHub as well. So if anyone's interested in how we actually take an image and use semantic segmentation to identify what's in it, you can dig around in all of our code as well. What I will end by saying is anyone can go to Map the Paths and create a challenge and start capturing imagery in their own areas. All they need is a smartphone camera and a mount that they can, and also the fact they won't mind looking silly, perhaps doing so as well, can start submitting this imagery to both share up their local area, but contribute to the global aim, as I say, of trying to make cycling infrastructure safer for everyone.
Well, thank you very much, David. Fantastic. Very, 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 very good. Let's see what questions we have here. Hang on. One of our Dutch attendees asks, I don't see you tram rails are the worst danger for cyclists in the Netherlands. I don't see this model. Have you modeled tram rails as a problem?
Yeah, I'm with you there. I maybe skirted over that point, and that photo did indeed have tram rails in. No, we haven't yet. That's quite a difficult problem for a number of reasons, but it's not impossible. It just requires enough training of the model to be able to detect them. We can't right now, but with enough information and with people labeling tram rails inside of Map the Paths, it will all contribute to improving that model.
How does this all interplay with OpenStreetMap, if at all, David?
I would love to say it interplays a lot, but right now it doesn't at all. What I would really like to start doing is using the abstracted information to update OpenStreetMap, or at least provide, similar to what, if anyone's familiar with Mapillary, there's in the ID editor, for example, you can bring in Mapillary images to use as context for tagging areas of the map or improving areas of the map. I do want to do the same with this sort of stuff, but right now we can definitely contribute the images themselves. The actual data we're pulling out of them, I would be hesitant to, without any validation or without any human input, plug them straight into the OpenStreetMap database. So there's some potential ideas of helping to improve the editor products in OpenStreetMap with these images, but right now that doesn't exist.
Okay, very cool. What is the best way for people to get involved? I mean, you put up all the different links, but what are the parts of the project where you most need help, you would say?
We're really trying to, at this point in time, focus on cycling infrastructure. So really anyone in cities with a smartphone that they can mount to their bike, or potentially if they've got the money to buy a panoramic 360 camera to mount to their helmet, those sort of images are where we're really trying to focus on at the moment. But more generally, in the wider goal, any imagery contributed will help or potentially help in the future. Every image that's uploaded to our platform, essentially, we ask the user to grant an open license to that image so that researchers, as well as ourselves, can further use them in their own work, which is something that is simply impossible with Street View images. Mapillary have opened up their licensing model since they've been acquired by Facebook. But yeah, the benefit being is, one, your images are online, people can explore them. But two, having that image online is good for the broader community. But really, if you can submit cycling-based images, that's what we're really looking for right now.